Thank you very much, Mr Streeter. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I'm standing here this morning to talk about a very important issue that my constituents raise with me on a weekly basis, an issue that I've been campaigning on for many years as a Member of Parliament and before that as a London Council leader. This is about overcrowding in social housing and indeed the housing crisis. Now, I hesitate to use the term crisis because this would imply the problem is sudden and unexpected and has appeared out of nowhere. But no, this housing emergency intensified after the global financial crash of 2008-9 and ensuing austerity years under consecutive Conservative governments. The generation born at the end of the Second World War grew up in a world where people from a range of backgrounds had the opportunity, rightly so, to live in an affordable and secure home. But this completely changed after Mrs Thatcher's privatisation, creating a property boom, and for the first time ever, homes became a barrier to social mobility. Over the years, the right to buy policy has led to the depletion of high-quality social homes, and nowadays, you're more likely to own a home if your parents own a home. In England, there are now 1.2 million families waiting for social homes. In my own borough, 13,343 households are on the housing register, and to date, over 2 million council homes across the UK have been sold off, with only 4% of those replaced. The Chartered Institute of Housing found that as of 2021, 40% of homes sold under right to buy are now owned by private landlords who can charge as much rent as they want. Rather than subsidising rents through millions of pounds of housing benefits, surely it would be easier and cheaper to build council homes. In my constituency of Hornsey and Wood Green, the average house price is £630,000, way above the national average of £285,000, according to the House of Commons Library from March 2023. Home ownership is an impossible dream, and council homes are in short supply. Young people growing up in my constituency are either forced to move away, live with their parents, or spend up to 60% of their monthly income on very expensive, insecure, and often poor quality privately rented housing. I give way.
I thank my friend for giving way and for securing this important debate. Would you take the opportunity to congratulate the London Mayor for trying to tackle part of the problem by building, just in my own borough of Southwark, 926 homes, including on the Manor and Rennie Estate in Bermondsey, in Rotherhithe, and in partnership with the Leather Market Joint Management Board off Long Lane in my constituency.
I thank the member for Bermondsey, and he is indeed right that this takes political will, because if people cannot afford to save while privately renting, they're not able to save for a deposit, so it's a catch-22 situation. Since becoming Member of Parliament in 2015, I've campaigned for the building of social and affordable homes, and I'm particularly concerned about the level of overcrowding and its long-term impact on children and young people. Of course.
Forward. This isn't just an issue in the mainland, it's an issue for us back home as well, where although smaller population, 1.9 million, there's still some 38,000 applicants on the social housing waiting list, some 127,400 social homes across Northern Ireland, and only 18,000 located in rural areas. Does the Honourable Lady agree that while the figures are exceptional for the mainland, they're also exceptional for Northern Ireland, and there really is a need not only to build social housing in the urban area, but also in the rural areas as well? Thank you.
As ever, the Honourable Member makes extremely important points, and I am aware from reading in the press that Northern Ireland has got a housing shortage as well of the correct sorts of homes. Perhaps the right number of bedrooms are available, but not in the right configuration. In Haringey, 1,053 individuals are estimated to be living in overcrowded or severely overcrowded council homes, and 871 private sector tenants in the highest social housing priority band are overcrowded or severely overcrowded. And we know that no local authority wants to place a household in unsuitable or overcrowded accommodation. However, the severe reduction in the number of homes available to let through social housing and the changes to the local housing allowance mean that councils are forced to use the dwindling private rented sector, bed and breakfast, low-quality accommodation and hotels. Sadly, constituents get in touch with me all the time, exhausted with living in overcrowded, damp and mouldy homes, waiting years and even decades for suitable social housing. Last summer, one constituent told me she'd been living in an emergency one-bedroom studio with her 16-year-old teenager and 6-year-old severely autistic son. As well as living in cramped conditions, she told me, the roof has collapsed, our bulbs keep going out as there is some electrical fault here, the fridge doesn't work, I keep feeling constantly ill because there's no windows that work either. And of course, in London, we all live with the shadow of the terrible tragedy of the Grenfell fire. Another constituent told me that she's living with her elderly parents and 2 children aged 17 and 2. She tells me she's been waiting for her own social home since 2012. She says, "My parents are elderly, they love me and my children, but due to being overcrowded and being in each other's space every day, it's caused a major communication breakdown and arguments. I'm a single mother with 2 children trying to build a bright future for my children." Another constituent is currently living in 2-bedroom temporary accommodation with his wife and 2 children. He's been bidding for a permanent 3-bedroom property for 8 years now with no success, and the list goes on. London's housing catastrophe has been 14 years in the making. When London Mayor Sadiq Khan arrived at City Hall, the number of new, genuinely affordable homes, as the member for Bermondsey has said, had fallen to the lowest levels since records began. The previous mayor left the cupboard bare and changed the definition of affordable housing to make it even harder for working families. However, things are gradually changing. The Mayor of London is leading a renaissance in council housing development in London, and thanks to Labour, London's seen more new homes completed during Sadiq's tenure than at any time since the 1930s. In Haringey, a Labour authority, the council's on track to deliver 3,000 council homes by 2031 and will continue to improve existing stock. Last year, council house building in London was higher than the rest of the country, built almost entirely in Labour-run authority areas where members are very pragmatic and tend to agree to planning applications where they fit best practice recommendations, and they get on with it over the 4 years of their term. Of course.
The Honourable Member makes an excellent point, and Southwark Council is the biggest landlord in London, but also has the biggest council house building programme in the country. Does the member agree that it's only with Labour working in partnership with the private and social housing sector that will address this problem fully, and we need a Labour government to do that?
I completely agree. The combination of a Labour government and Labour authorities at regional level could have a huge impact on house building. We know that this needs to be scaled up to a national level, and regional leaders need to have the power and backing to build more homes. Imagine the difference that Labour government could make. Of course.
For giving way. She makes some really important points on a really important debate that has impact in my constituency. The Conservative-led council in Darlington embarked upon a 10-year programme to build more council housing, and it's delivering 1,000 council homes over 10 years. But that is still not enough, and we are seeing work done with regards to social housing providers who are also providing homes. I just want to return to one of the points that she made in respect of the cause of this being in respect of the right to buy. Is it her view that the right to buy should be ended?
No, it's not, but I think we do need to stick to a pledge, regardless of government, sort of government, which political party is in charge, that we need to replace everyone that is sold off. Otherwise, we're depriving the future of opportunity, because in the end, it's that opportunity which it gives working families to basically save to have other opportunities. Because if you're paying 60% of your income, your incoming income in rent, then you're not able to do very much. Whereas if you're paying a third, which is approximately what social home rent is valued at, then it gives you so much more opportunity in your life to do all sorts of things. And I was very pleased to hear the examples from Darlington, which I know is an area in the UK which is very disadvantaged, or has deep pockets of disadvantage. According to the National Housing Federation, an estimated 8.4 million people are living in unsuitable housing, affected by overcrowding, unaffordability, disrepair and damp and mould, as of December 2021. For 4.2 million of these people, social rented housing would be the most appropriate tenure to address that need. Most significant of all, overcrowding is the largest problem nationally, affecting nearly 3.7 million people. And what is that impact like, Mr. Streeter, in overcrowded conditions? I've actually spoken to many children and young people living in overcrowded homes, struggling to concentrate on homework and exam revision. Some children are forced to work on the floor while sharing their room with young siblings. Others try and study in libraries, but we know that some libraries are struggling to keep their doors open due to the cuts from central government funding. According to the National Housing Federation, almost 2 million children, that's 1 in 6, live in overcrowded homes. What's more, 310,000 children in England share a bed with parents or siblings because of overcrowded homes. The impact of sharing a bed with your parents is, I think, quite a negative experience in terms of how ready you are to study in the morning or be ready for school. And I think this is something which we need to look at in detail and understand the long-term impacts of. One constituent recently wrote in to me to say, my family and I have been living in severely overcrowded conditions in a one-bedroom flat since 2016. Our children need their own space for learning and playing, but we cannot provide that for them. The severe overcrowding affects us and our children greatly, both socially and psychologically. The 5 of us are forced to share a bedroom just to separate our living room from our sleeping space. We're making it very clear to children living in social homes that they do not deserve their own space to study, to decompress, to play, a space to be children. According to Barnardo's, more than 1 million children in the UK either sleep on the floor or share a bed with parents or siblings because their landlord has failed to replace broken frames and poor quality homes have turned linen mouldy. I've received recently a video of a mum holding up the garment which was her toddler's favourite purple jumper, covered in mould and having to be thrown away. And the replacement cost of clothing and linen is high for people on low incomes. And I've lost count of other numbers of parents who have contacted me to say they can no longer use the bedroom due to excessive mould on ceilings, walls and bedding. So it becomes safer for children to sleep on a sofa with a sheet than to sleep in their own bedroom in a comfortable bed. Last year I visited Mind in Haringey, a mental health charity where I am a patron. Staff told me about the different issues they were experiencing on the front line. They're speaking to more and more patients whose mental health difficulties are caused or made significantly worse by poor housing. I'd like to put on record my enormous gratitude to the Haringey Mind team, as well as the other fantastic organisations which support my constituents every day, including Shelter, Citizens Advice Haringey, St James's Legal Advice Centre in Muswell Hill and Wilton Road, and in Wood Green, Haringey Law Centre, Haringey Connected Communities, and lastly London Councils for their continued advocacy for the people of London. According to the Times Health Commission, poor quality housing costs the National Health Service £1.4 billion a year, proof that health and housing are integrally linked. Often when I'm out in the constituency, Mr. Streeter, and I ask a group of children who here has an asthma pump or knows a friend in this class or another class who has an asthma pump, all the hands go up. We need to tackle not just the outdoor poor quality air, but the indoor poor quality air. When Nye Bevan, as Health Minister, founded the NHS in 1948, he also had a vision for council housing. He wanted to create a housing service similar to the National Health Service because he knew that good quality and affordable homes were crucial to people's physical and mental health. We know that those living in overcrowded homes are more likely to face problems such as damp, vermin and lack of outdoor space. According to the 2022 Marmot Review for the Greater London Authority, overcrowding is associated with higher rates of tuberculosis transmission, stress and depression. Scurvy is coming back into GP clinics. All this puts more pressure on our NHS and means that people are sicker for longer. A house isn't just a roof over one's head, it's a home that you decorate and personalise, a place to go after a hard day's work where you laugh, cry, make memories for life. A home is where you feel safe and warm, because security in your home, the right to make your home your own, and most of all the right to live in a home fit for human habitation, is non-negotiable. Because housing isn't a market, well it is, but it shouldn't necessarily just be a market. It's a fundamental human right. More recently, commercial properties such as vacant shops, restaurants, gyms and offices are being converted into houses. These buildings that were never designed for human habitation are being used up and down the country as emergency accommodation while residents wait years for their social home. The government shamefully voted through a planning loophole known as permitted development rights, which allows changes to be made to an existing building without planning permission. It's resulted in thousands of buildings being converted without proper checks on quality, minimum space standards, fire safety, ventilation, energy efficiency, and of course, gets around the requirement for an element of that particular planning application to be social homes. The government will do almost anything but put shovels in the ground and build more homes. The extension of permitted development right is not just damaging, it's a missed opportunity to tackle Britain's housing crisis and produce high-quality homes. It's clear we must prioritise council housing, and council housing. This government can no longer be trusted to build council homes or any homes at this rate. 14 years in power and nothing to show for it. Only a Labour government will bring about the biggest boost in affordable homes for a generation. With social and council housing at the core of our plan, we'll also make sure that developers honour their commitments in full to provide new social and affordable homes, something that this government has turned a blind eye to. Last week's spring budget was a missed opportunity to help people onto the housing ladder. Whether they do have the money to have a mortgage, there was nothing for them. Whether it was to tackle growing private rents and the unaffordable nature of growing rents, or the long queues for social housing, the Chancellor missed a trick. As I've outlined in my speech, social housing provides long-term stability that enables people to get on with life. Whatever your situation, whether you're studying or working, a young family, a person living alone, social housing can help you to put down roots and create community. I'm proud that it was the Labour Party under Clement Attlee that undertook the most ambitious house-building programme ever. And what's so different from 1945 now? Is it that different after all we've been through with the COVID pandemic, with the war, with the energy crisis in Europe? Is that different from the 1940s? Now is the moment, and the Labour Party plans on restoring social housing and ensuring that no one is left behind. Thank you, Mr. Streeter.
The question is that this House has considered social housing occupancy levels. Yasmin Qureshi, but let's remember to